Excuse me for a bit. I am reading this book. There's a book? I love books. Do you mind if I listen to it? Sure. Could you mind getting out of the way? There are kids watching this. Kids? Other kids? Yeah, aside from you? Yeah, aside from me. I'm a kid too. Oh, what a surprise! And what a coincidence there are other kids watching this. May I sit on your lap to listen? Sure, you can. Okay. Hello everyone, and welcome to another reading video for me. So this story is one of the many stories here of the book, The Classic Treasury of Animals Stories. So let's begin this particular story, Coyote and Water Serpent. Okay, let's go. A long time ago. Okay, just synchronize the moves. A long time ago, yes, when the earth was still young, coyote, this is a coyote. A coyote is like one of the ancestors of a dog. Coyote is a type of wolf. And water serpent, that is a mythical creature. Like it's a giant snake that lives in water. Yeah. Water serpent were the best of friends. They would drop at each other's house whenever it occurred them to do so. So they would just visit each other like I would do with my best friend and neighbor, Katana. Coyote and Water Serpent were young in those days, and their story had not yet unfolded. Story unfolded is an idiom that means they haven't explored so much. One morning, after Water Serpent had finished his breakfast, he decided to visit his good friend Coyote. Again, it's a type of wolf. As he neared Coyote's house, he could see smoke rising. And he knew his friend was at home. Hello, he shouted into Coyote's den. Anyone home? May I come in to visit? Of course, replied Coyote. Well, he's a nice friend. Being a friendly sort of fellow. Come, share the warmth of my fire, and let's have a chat. Water Serpent, that's the mythical snake, big snake in water, poked his head into Coyote's house, okay, and started to slide in. Get it? Slide in. That's a pretty good book, and I like the character Coyote because it's a descendant of me, a dog. Now, although he had not reached his full adult size, which is huge, Water Serpent was a pretty big snake. He slid in one coil, which bumped up against each wall of the room, bump, 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 bump. And it was not all of him. He slithered some more, and another coil overlapped the first, and it was not all, overlapped the first, and it was still not all of him. He slid and slithered, piled coil among coil, until Coyote was pushed to the very edge of his fire pit. When Water Serpent was all the way in and comfortable, there was no room for poor Coyote. He was forced to sit, all scrunched up close to the heat fire. But Water Serpent was his friend, and soon they began to gossip about what was happening in the village nearby and when the rains might start. I was listening very closely. You know that? Yes, I know that, Coochie, and the kids even saw you. Okay. All the while, Water Serpent seemed not to notice his what? His friend's discomfort. So Coyote, look in this picture. So Water Serpent totally filled Coyote's room, and Coyote is sitting right next to the fire because he has no room to sit. His friend's discomfort. Coyote is so not comfortable, and Coyote, being the sort that he was, fell into scheming and planning how he would get back at his friend. No, his friend didn't mean it, alright. Finally, Water Serpent announced his departure. Again, it's not Water Serpent's fault. Water Serpent doesn't know that Coyote is not happy. Just Coyote hasn't told him yet because he's best friends. He doesn't want to make his friend upset. Saying, "Come to visit me soon. Don't stay away too long." And he began to leave. He left. Unlike most other creatures, it took him some time to get out, for him to emerge completely from Coyote's home. And he was still slithering out when Coyote settled upon his plan. Coyote was so anxious to put his scheme in action that he rushed through his supper and ran out into the evening. Soon he came to a spot full of juniper trees. Juniper trees. Picked up some eucalypts. I have no idea what eucalypts are. I'm sorry. And he arrived back home with his arms laden of eucalypts. Once inside, Coyote started working. He worked all through the night. By the time the morning sun crept into his den, he had fashioned a tail from the juniper barks and the eucalypts. It looked just like Water Serpent's tail and was almost as long. 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 Coyote was very pleased with himself and his plan, but the tail needed one last finishing touch so that Water Serpent would believe it was really Coyote's tail. What could that be? He started pulling tufts of fur from his body, pull, and sticking it onto his tail. Ooh! And soon it indeed looked like the rest of him. I can't wait until it's time to visit Water Serpent, he thought to himself. Then he'll know what it's like to be squashed and squeezed and made uncomfortable in your own home. Again, it's not Water Serpent's fault. He doesn't know that his friend is uncomfortable. What? The next day, Coyote and his new tail, made their way over to Water Serpent's house. "Anyone home?" he called out. "May I come in?" "Of course, come on in," answered Water Serpent. I know, it's gonna go bad. And Coyote proudly began his entrance. "I don't know what's happening to me," he said to Water Serpent, "but all of a sudden I seem to have grown this very long tail. It's almost as long as yours. I can't imagine where it where it came from. Sorry. You'll have to excuse me if I take up more room than usual. Oh, the fake tail. Fake tail comes into trickery. And since Coyote thought he was going to teach Water Serpent a lesson, he too draped his tail around the whole room. Water Serpent had a big house, yes he did, but soon he was crushed up against one side of the room. He was crushed up there. His coils in an uncomfortable knot. His coils is in a knot. Oh, okay. Coyote, appearing not to notice, began to talk. He talked all afternoon, enjoying his trip. But Water Serpent saw what Coyote was up to and knew the tail wasn't the real one. At supper time, Coyote took his leave, humming and thinking to himself that Water Serpent had fallen for his trick. He was very, very proud of himself. But Water Serpent was at home thinking that Coyote, he's always up to something. He really thought I wouldn't notice that his tail was a fake. Soon, it was Water Serpent's turn to visit. As he came near Coyote's house, Coyote quickly tied on his tail and went to the opening of his den to greet his friend. Water Serpent said, I think you should know, since we've last met, I'm grown again. I'm not sure we'll both fit in your house anymore. Water Serpent had done the same trick. Oh, I'm sure I will. Oh, let's see here. Okay, Water Serpent did the trick. Okay. Oh, I'm sure we will. Here, I'll come out and you go in first. Water Serpent went in and in and in and in and in. There wasn't room for Coyote after all. To be polite, he was forced to sit outside and entertain his friend from there. What? It was very chilly that day and Coyote grew colder and colder. He found himself wishing. He begged that his friend would go home. But Water Serpent, the water mythical serpent so big, had no intention of leaving. He had no intention of leaving. He simply had no intention of leaving at all. He was quite happy to make his friend uncomfortable. He was happy to make him uncomfortable? What? Okay. So, he was happy to make his friend uncomfortable. In retaliation, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that, for Coyote's last visit. So he stayed and chatted about this and that, and only when Coyote's teeth began to chatter did he say, well, I must be going now. If you insist, replied the shivering Coyote, who was already trying to push past Water Serpent's coils in his rush to get to the fire. By the time the last of Water Serpent's tail was finally out of his house. Okay, Coyote had already hatched another plan to get even. Oh no! What's gonna happen? I'm afraid. I'm so afraid. Are they gonna start a rivalry or something? I don't know. I'm so afraid. Don't be afraid, Coochie. story, I'm sure. That evening, Coyote returned to the stand of junipers. I already know what he's gonna do. He's gonna build a longer tail. He dragged even more bark and yucca back to his home than he ever had before. Here it is. Once again, he made the bark and yucca leaves ready for tail making. When he was finished, Coyote was sure that he had the longest tail in the whole world. Certainly, it was enough to force Water Serpent to sit outside. When he went to visit the next bitterly cold day. So Coyote waited for a cold day and waited. The weather turned unseasonably warm. Coyote was not very good at biding his time, but now he was patient. He knew the wait would be worth it. The fourth day was bright and cold and just right for Coyote's visit. He got ready in a hurry and was soon at Water Serpent's house. He's now at Water Serpent's house? I think trouble is rising. Here I am at last, he called out. It's been a long time since we visited. May I come in? Of course. How nice to see you, replied Water Serpent. I should warn you, Coyote shouted into the house, that since you last saw me, I too have grown quite a bit. There may not be room in your house for both of us. And with that, Coyote began to drag his tail into Water Serpent's house. It was soon obvious that Coyote's tail would fill every nook and cranny in the house, and Water Serpent politely offered to take his turn sitting outside. Oh no, you mustn't on my account, said Coyote. You'll catch your death of cold. It's not that chilly. It's not that chilly. Oh, responded Water Serpent. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Water Serpent will not be fine. So they idled the day, talking of things near and far. Water Serpent grew colder and colder, and he too began to wish that his friend would go home. But Coyote was enjoying his revenge. He was enjoying his revenge, and he was not about to cut his visit short. Just cut it. Water Serpent was so cold, he thought his eyes would turn to ice, and he was so cold, his nose would run. He thought Coyote would never leave. As the sun began to set, Coyote finally roused himself from his place next to Water Serpent's cozy fire and announced his departure. When he disappeared into the distance over a small hill, his tail was still leaving Water Serpent's house. I'm so sorry you weren't able to see it. Here it is. I'll give you some time to read it. Are you done? Are you done? Okay, you might be done right now. Okay. His tail was still leaving Water Serpent's house. Water Serpent thought, this is getting out of hand. I'm going to do something to end this silly competition. Coyote will never stop. He's a petty, vengeful wretch. He made me almost freeze to death. At just that moment, the last of Coyote's I'm sorry. Coyote's tail brushed past the fire, and the angry water serpent knew what he was going to do. He grabbed the end of the tail and stuck it in the fire. Meanwhile, Coyote had topped another rise. He was so in love with his tail, he felt he just had to turn around and admire it again. He just had to turn around and admire it again. What? But when Coyote looked again, the fire seemed to be following him. And in doing so, he noticed the fire way off in the wait a minute. So turn around. He noticed the fire way off in the distance, and thought that brush fire had started near Water Serpent's house. But when Coyote looked again, the fire seemed to be following him. He thought men were perhaps having a coyote drive, and it would be unwise to return to his house just yet. So Coyote veered off in a new direction. His walk became a trot. His trot, a run. Sorry. His trot, a run. Okay. Everywhere he looked, there seemed to be brush fires now. He was unaware that the swishing of his own tail had started the fires. He was only conscious that they seemed to be catching up to him. They seemed to be catching up to him. There. He was only conscious. The faster he ran, the more the sparks flew from his burning tail and set ablaze in the dry grasses. Coyote, in a panic now, thought of only reaching the river. He had no idea he was being chased by his own burning tail. He was certain that unknown enemies were hunting him down, beating out of cover with the use of fire. But as he approached the river, Coyote took one last look behind him. The fire had reached him, and at last he realized that he was running away from his own tail. He jumped into the river and was never seen again. When Coyote did not return, Water Serpent was not a bit upset. "Served him right," he muttered to himself. Coyote could never leave well enough alone, always making trouble and scheming. Now he'll never bother us again. And so Water Serpent lost his best friend. Who knows? He may be alone still. And look at that picture of Coyote with his own tail on fire leaping into the river. And looks like some gold in the river. And if you look at his paws, looks like he's grabbing the river. I don't know. I know about that. And the story is done. And this is just one of the stories. Remember, it's just one of the stories of so many stories here at the Classic Treasury of Animal Stories. There's even an Alice in Wonderland story at the end. The end. Oh, I really love that story. That was so good. Let's do another one. Another time. Okay, Coochie?